Stretching from the azure waters of the Mediterranean to the scorching sands of the Sahara, Libya possessed a rich history with ancient regions such as Tripoli, Benghazi, and Fezzan. Following the withdrawal of the Ottoman Empire, it became the target of Italian fascism, which sought to establish a new colonial empire in the Mediterranean. This was the story of the most honorable and tragic desert wars in history, waged by a people clad in the armor of the desert against modern weapons and tanks. In 1911, in line with the imperialist ambitions of Benito Mussolini and the Italian kingdom, Italian troops landed on the Libyan coast. Believing they would easily conquer the coastal cities with the dream of rebuilding the Roman Empire, the Italians instead encountered not only regular units, but also devoted indigenous tribes defending their deserts with their lives, along with volunteer resistance fighters, including Ottoman officers like Mustafa Kemal Ataturk. The strongest resistance against the Italian invasion was organized by the Senussi order and desert tribes. Knowing the desert like their own home, Libyan fighters applied masterly guerrilla tactics against the Italian army. Despite having modern cannons and airplanes, the Italians suffered heavy losses in the scorching desert heat and against the sudden raids of the desert lions. The resistance showed the entire world that they would not bow to colonialism. Fascist leader Benito Mussolini, who came to power in 1922, introduced the Iron Fist policy to crush the resistance in Libya. At the beginning of this bloody period, 70-year-old Quran teacher Omar Mukhtar took over the leadership of the local resistance. Nicknamed the Desert Lion, Omar Mukhtar crossed the deserts on horseback, giving the Italian army no respite for years. Under his leadership, the Libyans fought with extraordinary faith to achieve the impossible. When Italian General Rodolfo Graziani failed to defeat Omar Mukhtar's guerrilla tactics, he implemented an inhumane policy of brutality against the population. Thousands of kilometers of barbed wire were stretched up to the Egyptian border, isolating the desert people from the outside world and the guerrillas. Hundreds of thousands of Libyans were driven into concentration camps in the desert. Tens of thousands lost their lives in the camps due to hunger, thirst, and diseases. The desert was transformed into an open-air cemetery. In 1931, during an offensive in the Cyrenaica desert, Omar Mukhtar's horse was shot, leaving him severely wounded and captured by the Italians. On September 16, 1931, he was executed in front of thousands of native Libyans. Italian commanders thought the resistance would end with the death of the Desert Lion. However, Omar Mukhtar's dignified stance and words on the gallows were etched into the memory of the entire Libyan people, becoming the legendary symbol of resistance. Following the death of Omar Mukhtar, the resistance continued underground. During World War II, Libya became the scene of the fiercest battles between British and Allied forces and Italian-German Axis forces. The battles of El Alamein and Tobruk, fought in the desert, brought an end to Italian colonial rule. The Italian army was driven out of Libya, and the country came under British and French military administration. Following the war, with pressure from the international community, the Libyan issue was brought to the United Nations. In 1949, the UN made a historic decision for Libya to gain its independence. The country's three historical regions, Tripoli, Benghazi, and Fezzan, were united, laying the foundations of an independent state. The pain of years of desert wars and concentration camps was finally giving way to the hope of freedom. On December 24, 1951, Libya officially declared its independence under the leadership of King Idris I. While the Italian colonial flag passed into history, the flag of the Kingdom of Libya began to wave. Following centuries of Ottoman rule, the savagery of Italian fascism, and temporary Allied occupations, the Libyan people had finally become masters of their own homeland. Libyan cities and desert oases turned into festivals with independence celebrations. The descendants of the desert lion Omar Mukhtar experienced the pride of freedom in these lands, watered by their ancestors' blood. Years of suffering, the memory of concentration camps, and the shed blood were crowned with the euphoria of independence. The story of Libya showed the world how a handful of people could become giants against fascism in the sands of the desert, and demonstrated the power of faith. But when we journey to the heart of Europe, to that first colony crushed by Britain for centuries, what wounds of history are reopened? In our next video, we will witness Ireland's struggle for freedom and its painful history. Stay tuned.